So okay. 50. Only 50 different. Oh, what's different? Oh yeah, why not? We don't choose by ourselves. And everything. Okay. So far, why you want to be a Thank you. Okay. I have your. No, I don't get it. No. Yeah, I would love to. Thank you so much. Perfect. Trời ơi, em đi về không thầy thích về Hải đi mình ăn uống đặt lòng hết rồi quay qua không đi về nhưng mà ban thầy giảng thì âm đi hay thầy thích về Hải phải nghe nhiều ban bên Việt Nam dạ nhiều giá ngay uống của mình á đặt lót hết bệnh hoạn không thì dạ em ăn cỡ lúc nào rồi không tại bệnh không ung thư bị tiểu đường ăn lúc đó là bị bệnh nhất hết luôn nhưng mà phải tin lại coi đó mình phải tập bây giờ em tập rồi em uống nước âm dương nữa bạn nói chuyện uống nước phải sao là uống nước âm dương là nữa nó uống gì cả mấy ta với nhau hả như sự lắm thì được lạnh tan và nó nhau tiền lắm người của mình nhức nhối là nó tan ra ngủ dậy khỏi không ai cũng vậy mà mỗi stress là ô nhiễm môi trường ăn uống với chất không thầy xuống rồi ăn quả em á cái ngồi đó đó
như vậy đúng rồi đấy Lama dam bo jamba yama jamza Gange lode jenye jenda Yeda nanda rasa Jenye jenge jeshen sije Nije doga levam Zengana sebe tanora mari Mendam dunga jese Jozo kena puji tatsi Yenwa duju yamde Zo lundare chejo Nyemo nyeno Neji chado duze Mari ze dunga nyu Jenye jenze raje Nandene kaji saje tazi Yenden lezo nyase tuve Chöra chödan chönin jende Nale menze jambe Yala indi Marabazana diyo 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 Marabazana de 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 Marabazana Pemanjunen dale zorojo Bolodorian Devada Tomeni Chulanji Jindan Chujujan Baozo Zamlin Jinjunan Jinda Ejon Kamin Begarin Jinin Bego and Dengu Junga Vishazado Nibidens Bebena Jaraba Longjen on Janja Jinda Ejon Rigonjin Bajinale Bombilone Bobita Jedo Londo Jinjan Mawanju Mibam Jambi Anjinda Ejon Jizala Kunjaran Juji Jibedin, the Jigala Mendanawa, Palden Lami Jaji Daisho, Kamidala Rigolavada, the Judin Jimimana Lazo, the Homerishinabe, Mujutin Jela Mendaisho, Sanjay Kadin Sanjay Kuneta Bigin, Sarina Mishalazwade, Nazun Rujin Rovara Shinjelo, Conjala Jujun Dena, the Jelo. Sembra de banda da de je na maria da ba lai ke dan da ne je ke do da da ne ke nan da do je da nan je zam ba tam je ke do so sur te je ji manjur na ke thada nyam be simjen tham je nam ro den je dewa na me ba yang da ban zo bi sanje ji ko man dur chen chine jam ge bar sha e che do ke ba chen be shung lo ja se chen bo shiwa len ze Junju Tsushin Sen Yamsu Hawa Ju Sangashan Juchu Tujabata sense how so firstly we're generating this bodhicitta in this way that I'm going to listening this Mahayana scripture composed by Shantideva called Way of Bodhisattva's Life. Then whatever I understand through this teaching, I will try my best to put into practice for the sake of motherly sentient beings in order to liberate them from this cyclic existence and its cause, the afflictive emotions and karma, and to lead them to complete enlightenment. And then, top of that, listen carefully in an excellent way and then try to hold it. And these are the two things that we need to prepare before we enter into the actual meritorious activity of listening and teaching Dharma. And then the actual teaching here that we are studying this way of Bodhisattva's life, which has a 10 chapter and four themes. That first 3 chapters is introducing the potential of having this bodhicitta, and then how to have it, what to prepare. Then mainly the second chapters introducing how to prepare to have it within oneself. And then the third chapter is continues the how to prepare with the actual method, how one can receive after all complete the preparations. And then the next three chapters, 4, 5, 6, and these three chapters, and once we receive this bodhisattva's vow within oneself, and in order not to transgress that bodhisattva's vow, and how to maintain that what really, if we try, then we can tell ourselves that I didn't transgress bodhisattva's vow. So in order to understand that clearly, then this chapter number 4, 5, 6 is introducing how to maintain and how to protect that what we have so far received this bodhisattva's vow. And then chapter number 7, 8, 9, these three chapters, and not to just maintain and not to just protect that bodhisattva's vow, but further how one can develop, how one can improve the path of liberation or the way of bodhisattva's life, until what that we can improve this bodhisattva. And then the last chapter, the chapter number 10, that through receiving bodhicitta, and then maintaining bodhicitta, and then developing the bodhicitta, through that, whatever we accumulated merit through physically, verbally, mentally, all those merit and how to dedicate. And that is also instructing in this last chapter, chapter number 10, and how to make aspirations as well. So among this main four theme that we are here in this second theme, which is how to maintain or to protect that which so far we received Bodhisattva's vow. And then this has a three chapter. Chapter number 4 is carefulness. And then the chapter number 5 is the vigilant or introspection. And then chapter number 6, the patient practice. So through that, and if we practice properly in these instructions, then one can tell ourselves that I maintained this Bodhisattva's vow well. And then so far we are in this chapter number 4, the carefulness. And Shantideva here trying to letting us have a sense of carefulness to not to transgress this our Bodhisattva's vow. And in order to do that, and he is introducing that first we need to understand the precepts. And then after we understand the precepts, then what if we transgress? What if we break those precepts? And what consequences will going to be? And then that also he introduced through understanding that consequences of transgressing. And we can also say he's trying to let us have a sense of carefulness to try one's best to not to let transgress. And then also that he's trying to let us have a sense of carefulness through the many different ideas that such as kind of like letting us to contemplate on having this precious human rebirth. By having this precious human rebirth means we have all the causes and conditions which we are really capable to maintain this vow if we really try. And we are very capable with understanding that, and then he is also trying to let us have a sense of carefulness to not to lose that. And also not just that, but if one lose this opportunity, this capable, then what will going to be the consequences in the future? Through letting us understand that losing this opportunity what will going to bring to our future. through that idea, and he's also trying to let us have a sense of carefulness. And then also that how to say that even though that we have all this great teacher like a Shakyamuni Buddha and so on to our root teachers, and then also that having all those sangha, also having all this scripture available, but if we don't really put effort ourselves, and this having all those conditions like a scripture enough and sangha follower enough and then guidance enough doesn't really make any difference. So mainly that you have to act, you need to take your responsibility through letting us understanding that also he is trying to let us have a sense of carefulness about this, not to transgress about this bodhisattva's vow. And then later he also introducing that persons who is really wish or willing to not to transgress this our bodhisattva's vow, then one must really try to deal or to try to reduce or try to eliminate this afflictive emotions. And why? And he already explained how that if you are not deal with it, if you feed your afflictive emotions, if you obey or to follow your afflictive emotions, then what consequences will going to be? That if you feed and obey and follow your afflictive emotions, and then that the how these afflictive emotions with the joyfully or happily will going to harm us, and not just harm, and then the amount of harming or the kind of like a, how much really if we feed afflictive emotions, if we let if we let it be the afflictive emotions, then how much that afflictive emotions can harm us. Then he is give this to understand us to how much these afflictive emotions can harm oneself. So he's using this example, even though on the one side all the demigods and God became your foe or enemy, and then they killed you in a worst way, that with the torture, that this kind of like a suffer or the torture or the harmfulness even cannot compare that how much your afflictive emotions will going to harm you if you obey them. And that's the harmful, and that's the harmful wise. And then also he's letting us understand the time wise, and then also he's letting us the how it is difficult to support and to adjust with the afflictive emotions. So letting us understand all these things, and then he's really trying to let us have a sense of carefulness to not to obey and not to fit this our own afflictive emotions. As long as if you want to maintain this bodhisattva's vow, so you should try your best to not to feed them and obey them. And if you try that way, then your bodhisattva's vow will never going to transgress. Means your script where you are that our own this Mahayana path will not going to ruin or not going to spoil. So in order not to spoil or ruin our spiritual path in general, and particularly this Mahayana path, which is the cause and conditions to achieve liberation and enlightenment. And then where once we reach to that stage, that without effort, effortlessly, that one can benefit countless of sentient beings, even who wish to benefit the sentient beings, this bodhicitta is the right cause. And not just that, also that anyone who wants to diminish or who wants to purify all their negativities, and who wish to who wish to get rid of the self-centered attitude, and also that bodhicitta is the ultimate or the unmistaken antidote to reduce that as well. So these kind of many reasons that in bottom line, that person, whoever willing to practice this spiritual path in general, and particularly this Mahayana spiritual path, the way of Bodhisattva's life, not to transgress this one's Bodhisattva's vow, then these are the opposite conditions which can make us transgress. So if you are aware about it, if you try to deal with it, not to let oneself controlled by them, rather than letting them control oneself try to control them. If you do that, then your Bodhisattva's vow will not going to transgress. Your Mahayana spiritual path will not going to ruin. In general, also that spiritual path will not going to spoil or the ruin. So whoever have that willing, and that's the what one should try our best to not to obey. That is trying to let us have a sense of carefulness to try one's best. And then now today this stanza number 37. This stanza number 37 and stanza number 38. These two stanza better to try to understand together here. That Ramshin Chive Dungal Judbi Nyamunda Yurmur Marci Nengi Shumar Devayam, Dadum Swinji Pogi Dungal Kesemi, Gamadruba Chichu Jebra Mije Na. Tadu Dungal Kunji Jurjuba, Ramshin Rami Shumzun Dala Tain, Dungal Jata Jurjur Kangikam, Iche Giluk Minjur Meji words. So these two stanza, 37 and 38, that how they translated in this book in English, that proud but wretched rivals, destined all to suffer when they die, will draw the battle lines and do their best to win, and careless of the pain of cut and thirst, will stand their ground, refusing to give way. This is example. And then if that's the case, then no need to say that I will not lose heart, regardless of the hardship of the fray. From this day forth, I will strive to crush this force whose very nature is to bring me pain. So first stanza is the example, second stanza is the meaning, and now this is kind of like mainly this what he is trying to telling us. It is worth to take hardship. It is worth to take hardship to fight with one's afflictive emotions. This is the main point that he's trying to let us understand. It is very much worth to take hardship to fight with one's afflictive emotions. And then he's comparing these two things. He's trying to let us understand how it is worth to take hardship to fight with one's afflictive emotions. And then to understand that, he's using these comparative examples. That how he's using this example of comparative examples is the first stanza is the example that he's saying. That this is it is something. Okay, I read this in English, but now I don't know that how that you are getting it this through understanding this stanza. But let me tell you that's based on this understanding in this Tibetan. that what it is saying is first is the example, which is he is trying to let us understand how it is worth to take hardship, to fight with one's own afflictive emotions. To understand that, he is using this example. Example is like this. This ordinary enemy, this ordinary human enemy, that outer human enemy, that ordinary outer human enemy, even though you don't fight, and even though you don't defeat them, naturally they will gonna end up. Even though you don't do anything, they will going to end up themselves. Some sooner or later, either the greatest way is they can die before you, that's finished, or some situations bring you them far away from you, finish. That's why it is saying these ordinary enemies are actually naturally, it is even though oneself really doesn't put effort to try to defeat them, fight with them and defeat with them, but eventually sooner or later it can be diminished itself. It's natural is that way. And then plus they also, I would say, so kind of like they themselves is also like the very actually the really right of compassion object rather than fight or rather than anger towards them. The fact is really they are very right object for oneself to practice compassion, because they are so weak, therefore they are trying to harm, therefore they are trying to disturb. But anyhow, even with those enemies, there's ordinary enemies. When someone really try to defeat through fight, when we really try to defeat them, and then we how to say we draw the battle lines to do their best to win from them. And when we do that, when we establish and when we prepare the battle lines to do to do their best to win, at that moment, then yes, definitely that other enemies is not just going to standing and whatever you do, he or she will not going to just let you do it, and they also going to hit you. Therefore, and during that time, then we hit each other's weapons, such as a bow, such as an arrow, and such as this dadung changes. Dadung, the arrow, and dung is kind of like a spine, spine, the long one. The spear, spear. Here in the word that what Shantideva wrote is like arrow, spear, and weapon, and so forth. It can be include any kind of weapons. Nowadays in modern, gun and everything, that atom bomb or whatsoever. That dadung tsungi poba, dadung tsungi pobe dungal kesenes. And when we draw the battle line, and these kind of wound will definitely going to happen in the battle. But still, that what we normal people thinking, it is worth to take that hardship to protect oneself or protect one's country or whatsoever reason. We think that it is worth and it is how to say proper, or it is worth to take that hardship and fight with them, even though they wound me, or they cut me whatsoever. All those pain and difficulties and scaries and the scares, and then the whatsoever the difficulties having in the battle line. We normal ordinary people think that this is worth to take hardship. And then we set up in our mind that it is worth to fight with them and then try to defeat them. And then we also think that until I get rid of this my enemy, that no matter what, regardless, I will never going to give up, or I will never going to run away from this battle. We set up our mind and we think that it is very much worth to take that hardship. Isn't it? This is an example. Through that example, what he's okay. So and then, if that the case, this is one first step. If that the case, then if that the case, then your own this, how to say, the enemy which is right dwell within oneself, which is afflictive emotions, which is the source of all our own difficulties. And naturally, it is very enemy that there's no way that it can become your friend. It can become your supportive. Naturally, certain that afflictive emotion is enemy forever. No matter how much you try to support them, they will never going to become your supportive. They will never going to become your friends. Therefore, it is naturally certain that it is your enemy. And then that enemy is the constantly and continuously, not like that ordinary enemy that if you don't, even if you don't do anything, it will go and just fade one day. Never. Until you disappear, it will going to be there with you. Until until you didn't get rid of this enemy will going to be with oneself forever. It is not like an ordinary enemy. One day they will gonna die and they will gonna disappear from in front of you. This your afflictive emotions is never going to fade until you get rid of. If you don't try to defeat, this is what it means. If you don't try to defeat that, then constantly, continuously, it will become the source of all the difficulties or the suffer. And then plus, it is really very certain that it is really your enemy. There's no way that it can become your friend or the supportive. And then now, you are trying to get rid of that really certain enemy who is causing, which is the source of all the suffering. And when one trying to get rid of that enemy, then no need to say, even though that I may have to face the 100 different types of difficulties, even I have to face the 100 different types of difficulties in order to face it, in order to fight with that. That, how to say, one shouldn't kind of like a yiche gilu goes. That yiche means that so far until now I am unable to defeat that. So therefore, even to now, if I try, I will never going to I will never going to win, or I'm never going to able to defeat them. That kind of like a discouraging oneself. And then Gilu means that the Gilu and Yiche are the, how does it work? That Gilu means that what to say? Giluk is kind of like a discouraging oneself, that looking oneself low, looking oneself down, that, oh, this is something I really cannot defeat. This is something I really cannot able to overcome or able to defeat. That kind of sense that that no need to say that what do you call that one shouldn't have that kind of sense that so far that I am not able to defeat that, and even in the future I will not going to able to defeat this afflictive emotions. That kind of discouragement, that it is no need to say that one will not going to have that kind of discourages because of that, because of the first example, to the ordinary enemy, that you are not giving up until you defeat that. Although even you don't defeat, it will going to disappear itself. And even though that it doesn't have so much kind of like a meaningful that if you able to defeat that either, but still we think it is worth to take hardship. If that the case, then the enemy which is causing us constantly and continuously the suffer, and then that's natural is certain it is enemy. To defeat that kind of natural certain enemy which causing us all the suffering, then one absolute, then it is like it goes without saying, absolutely you shouldn't have to discourage yourself trying to defeat that. I would say trying to defeating or trying to fighting with them. So never have this sense that I'm not able to do this, or I'm not going to win from this how to say enemy. So that kind of sense. So now the main point here, this Shantideva's what it is trying to telling us is the first stanza. He is giving this example. If that is the get reading of, or the get trying eliminate the ordinary enemy, then in order to eliminate that and taking that hardship, it is, if you think it is worth, then this really natural certain enemy, to defeat that, and even for that purpose, that even I have to take 100 different type of hardship, it is much more worth to take hardship. That the main Shantideva was trying to telling us here is that it is worth to be patient and take hardship to defeat, fight with one's afflictive emotions. That sense, kind of like he's trying to let us have that sense. So you never give up trying to fighting with the one's own afflictive emotions. Now this one stanza, that first two line is example, and then second two line is meaning. And again, this same idea that he's also trying to letting us have a sense of worth to take this hardship by comparing with these two things. Comparative example, that even in ordinary us. Okay, first let me read this. The stanza number 39. The wound inflicted by the enemy in futile wars are flaunted by the soldiers as a prize. So in the high endure for so great a thing, why should I be dismayed by hurt or injury? So first two line is the example, and then second two line is the meaning. And this stanza itself, it's also the same idea as before. Same idea as before, that he's trying to let us have a sense of kind of like a worth to take hardship, to fight with our afflictive emotions. And then how it is worth, then he is using this example, comparative example, that to let us understand how it is worth to take it, that hardship. Then first he is saying the that the what do you call it? In this world, in this mundane way, that when someone got wounded from one's enemy, for example, that this actually, I don't know, in how to say, we Tibetan has this little strange thinking, this one. Maybe many of other people also have the same way, this one. This Shanti, they were using very I would say, good example, that is saying that when someone got wound from one's enemy, and then in Tibetan case, let me tell you here, if the wound is in front, like cut here or shape here or whatsoever, knife cut here, then people is going with a proud, showing this wound here. If the back, not good. If wound from back, that little shy. Because you try to run away, they hit it. If you have a wound in front, you're proud. That's, we have this, our Tibetan people, we have. I think maybe same, any of the people have that proud, this in front. And then, that's now he is saying, that we are not letting go this wound. We protect that wound. That what do you call it? Sequester or the scare, right? Scare. Through scar, right? Scar from the wound. Or scar, or what do you call it? Cicatrice, right? Same, I think same meaning, different words. Cicatrice?
Where is it?
Cicatrice. No, that's not there. Masul Deva. I'm saying this Masul Deva. Lula Jendantava Sejanas. They protect that scars. They protect that scar like their ornament. Their what do you call it? Their ornament, yeah. Because they think that having this scar is something showing that you are brave. But only the purpose that protecting very carefully this scar to show other people, then people will think that you are brave enough. That's the whole purpose of maintaining, protecting that scar. There's no more meaning than that. Therefore, Shantideva was saying, meaningless. Even though this is meaningless, but we ordinarily think and we protect that scar from scar that which we get through the wound by fighting with the enemy. If that's the case, even there's no any meaning, but still you wanna protect that scar and to have within your body like your ornament. Then, if that's the case, Then the second two line is like this. So in the high endure, for so great a thing, why should I be dismayed by hurt or injury? Now that you are accepting that injury in order to just to show to others that I am brave enough. You are taking that hardship, injury. There's no more meaning than that. If you take that, if you think this is a worth to take hardship of pain or this or scare or this wound, then it goes without saying that tension rupture yanda tsunjir badala donga chichir nirjains. Tension rupture means that so in the high endeavor. They translate that. So in the high endeavor, high here what? Someone who really tried to practice this Mahayana spiritual path and the way of Bodhisattva's life, which means that practice itself is the kind of like is the high endeavor, because high endeavor, because it fulfills the both others and self. How to say? It fulfills the both others and self. What do you call it? How to say? It helps. Yeah, it helps both others and self to let's say get rid of the source of suffer and the suffer itself. Therefore, it is high endure, tension rupture. So for that purpose, and then yanda tsunjurbas, that putting effort, kind of like a, how to say, yeah, putting effort to practice, to maintain this Bodhisattva's vow, and to practice this 4 immeasurable and 6 prajna paramitas. For that purpose, and whatsoever I have to go through the difficulties, why those difficulties is really harming you. Actually, these difficulties is not really harming you. Comparing with the other one. Okay, you need to understand with that. This example, what he gave, that he said, someone who get wounded and is scared from their enemy. And if you think it is worth to take that hardship and take that pain to just to show that you are brave, if that's the case, and in order to fulfill both self and others' wish, for that purpose, when we try to practice effortlessly to this maintain this Bodhisattva's vow, and then the Mahayana path practice, such as the 4 immeasurable and 6 prajna paramita practice, in order to practice, when we are practicing that, meanwhile, whatsoever difficult I may need to face, why it is harming, why you should give up by those difficulties. Since you are thinking this is worth enough to not give up, if that's the case, this is much more worth to not give up. That's how he is trying to let us have some sense of courage within oneself to fight with it. We should have a sense of courage, not to lose courage. Shantideva was trying to let us have a sense of patience to practice it, to patience to fight with it. That how we should have a sense of patience, even though that normally, ordinarily, you are having this useless patience, useless kind of like taking hardship. If that is the case, then why you shouldn't have a courage to take this hardship? It is much more worth if you take this hardship for that purpose. That's what he's trying to let us have a sense of courageous, not to lose courageous, not to lose the patience, to trying to fight with the one's afflictions. Why should I be dismayed by hurt or injuries? That first thing, they are not dismayed by hurt or injury, right? If that's the case, then why you should be dismayed by this hurt and injuries for this purpose? That's how Shantideva was trying to let us have a sense of courageous, to not lose courageous, to fight with our defilements. And then from now here, also same idea, he is also trying to giving us some other example, like Nyaba and Dolba, Shingba la soba, Rangi Tsoa Tsamshik Sembaya, Changdang Tsala Sobi Nusuna, Roan Dechil Dada Chimizus. Now, this stanza first showing in a short meaning what he is really trying to say. That when fisher or the butcher, farmer, and the like, and so forth, actually, it's and so forth. Fisher, butcher, farmer, businessman, the employee, self-worker, whatsoever. We can include all of them. And the like, intending just to gain their livelihood. The purpose of all this hardship that they're taking is just to their livelihood. And for their livelihood will suffer all the miseries of the heat and cold. Now actually this is actually the fisher. Sometimes we can see this in a Discovery channels, that the fishermen, how they're taking their life risk to go to the ocean and then get all the different kinds of fish and then different kind of like octopus or whatsoever, and they take their risk of their life. They're taking that hardship. Likewise, farmers are, this farming is not easy, but however, they're taking all this hardship during the rain time, and then sunny, the rainy, sunny, whatsoever, that kind of difficulties, they are ready to take it, that hardshipness. And then the butchers, and then the dolba, actually this kind of like we can say like this butchers and so on, that who always do the very very nonsense things. So they think that it is worth to take that hardship, even though they take the risk of their own life, and then going there to get the fish, and then going there to get the whatsoever. And then also farmers are also like that, and so forth, like businessmen and whatsoever. They're taking their risk to do all these things. The bottom line, or the main purpose, that they are willing to take this all hardship and they think it is worth to take all this hardship, is the main purpose, or the bottom line is to just their livelihood. There's no more than that. If that the case, then here that trying to practice this way of Bodhisattva's life, and then trying to lead each and every sentient beings to the stage of bliss, happiness. For that purpose, that why I shouldn't take those hardships, why I shouldn't, how to say, taking hardship might be seen, but the purpose of the bottom line or the purpose of taking hardship is much more different. So therefore, Shantideva was trying to let us have a sense of courageous that think that, and why you shouldn't think that it is worth to take hardships. Even though those ordinary beings like those fisher, butcher, and farmers and so forth, they think it is worth to take hardship just to purpose of their livelihood. They are all self-centered and their own livelihood. If that the case, that on the other hand, someone trying to practice this way of Bodhisattva's life and trying to lead, trying to get rid of the suffering of all sentient beings and trying to lead all the sentient beings to the blissful stage. For that purpose, why it is not worth to take that hardship. It is much more worth to take this hardship than the person who is taking hardship like a fisherman, butcher, and so on. So through that, he's using this comparative example. If that is worth, and then this case is much more worth. That's what he is trying to let us have a sense of understand. And then main purpose that he is trying to let us have a courageous to try to fight with our own afflictive emotions. Why for the being happiness should those like me not bear the same? That's what it is. It's question mark. Bear the same, which means that answer is like it is much more worth to take this hardship and to bear it, all the suffers whatsoever I have to bear for the sake of other sentient beings. He's trying to let us have that kind of courageous. That he's trying to let us have this courageous. So now this 3 or 4 stanzas, that's this so far, this stanza number 37, 38, 39, and 40. These 4 stanzas, somehow what Shantideva was really trying to let us have is the courageous, is the patient, and then it is worth to take hardship to trying to fight with that. And then now this next 2, 41 and 42 stanza, also it's better to go together to understand this meaning. That Chochu Namki Tha Te Tu Be Draw Yumu Le Tower Hamje Kanse Dani Yang Yumu Nam Le Mandrolwa Dagi Tsögyang Misheba Mawa Jitan Yumba Min Dede Yumu Shambala Tadu Chirmin Tovar Shans. So when I pledged myself to free from their afflictions, being who abide in every region, stretching to the limits of the sky, I was myself not free from such a defilement. To speak like that, not knowing my capacity, where this not truly a madman's work, isn't it? More reason than for never drawing back, abandoning the fight against defiled afflictions. So now again, this is again bottom lines. Shantideva was letting us have some sort of like courageous for oneself to never give up regardless or no matter what. No matter what, regardless, no matter what, we shouldn't give up. That's the sense he's trying to let us have through these stanzas, through these two stanzas. That what he is really saying here, that when we pledged and when we take this Bodhisattva's vow, and we take this Bodhisattva's vow with the willing to liberate the suffering and the cause of suffering. The cause of suffering, which is afflictions, afflictive emotions. That when we take this Bodhisattva's vow, we are willing and we are pledging that, taking that promise that I will try, or I will going to liberate all the space, all the spacely sentient beings, whoever they are. I will liberate them from the suffering and the cause of suffering. That's how we take this Bodhisattva's vow. And when oneself taking pledge in that way, in that way, that even if we are not trying our own afflictive emotions to deal with our own afflictive emotions, then saying that way and taking pledge in that way, isn't it a little strange? Isn't it the little that you are saying all this without understanding your capabilities? Isn't it? It becomes saying that even though you are not trying even though you are not trying to liberate your own afflictive emotions, but saying that I will going to liberate all sentient beings, their afflictive emotions, then isn't it becomes a little contradiction and strange that you are not saying out of not understanding your own capacity? Isn't it like little madness? Isn't it like saying that way? Oneself is not trying to fight with it, but on the other hand, taking pledge for the others, isn't it a little crazy speak, crazy word, isn't it? So understand that. So don't make it this pledge is a craziness pledge. So in order not to make that your pledge to the craziness pledge, what you should do to understand in this way, then regardless or no matter what, you need to keep that sense that constantly that I will never going to give up trying to defeat or the fight with one's own afflictive emotions. And that courageous, you should keep it in order not to become this pledge is just a crazy word. And in order not to become this your word is crazy word, that you should try to fight with your own afflictive emotions. Since you are willing to liberate the others' afflictive emotions, then you must try to get rid of your own afflictive emotions. You must fight with it. That's the thing. That the bottom line again here, Shantideva was saying, is trying to let us have a courageous, regardless, no matter what, that we need to keep that sense in our deep in our mind that sooner or later that I have to fight with it. I have to try my best to defeat that, because I am also taking the pledge to liberate all the sentient beings from their all the sentient beings, their afflictive emotions. Since I am taking pledge in that way, that I should try, regardless what, no matter what, I should try my best to get rid of my own afflictive emotions. That determinations or the courageous that one must have it. That's what Shantideva was trying to let us understand and let us have that determinations. And then somehow this until this stanza, all those stanza number 37 to 42 until here, this stanza, 6th stanza, that Shantideva was trying to let us have a sense of courageous. That's the main thing, that we should have a sense of courageous, not to lose our hope, not to discourage oneself, trying to fight with one's affective emotions. That in order to have this courageous in very firm, here he is trying to let us have this courage in very firm. He is trying to making firm courageous. Okay, then now so far now that he also guided that persons, whoever trying to practice this Mahayana path or the maintaining Bodhisattva's vow, that what one should try is to fight with one's own affective emotions. And for that purpose, how much we need to put effort, or how much we need to be patient, or how much we need to take hardship. It is much more worth taking hardship than the purpose of all this worldly purpose. And through that, he is trying to let us have this prepare to take this hardshipness to fight with one's affective emotions. And then now, after having that firm, courageous, to ready to fight with one's own real certain enemy, which is affective emotions. And then now he is introducing, okay, so after, what should I do now? What should I do after I have this courageous, after I have these firm decisions that I will going to try my best to fight with it? Now, how can I fight? Then this is the answer that he is answering. Okay, after you have this courageous, firm decisions that you will try your best to fight with your affective emotions, then in order to fight with affective emotions, you should fight with your affective emotions in this way. That is stanza number 43. The stanza number 43 guiding us now how one should fight with one's affective emotions. Then Diladagi Shenjashins Kundu Sume Yulchede Namba Tenti Yumumo Yumonjumje Matoso.
There is one English word in here, rancor. I'm looking up.
Rancor.
Yeah, rancor. What does that mean?
Where is rancor?
43. Stanza 43.
Oh, rancor.
Yeah. What is it in Tibetan?
Rancor. Right now we are looking at stanza number 43.
Oh, rancor is like this guy. Like the
Rancor, I got this word before.
Giống như con khổng lồ á. This shall be all my consuming passion. Filled with rancor, I will wage my war.
Rancor is kind of like a grudge,
Yeah, like this guy.
Not guy, it is not about guy, it is like emotion. It is one type of emotion, not the physical.
Oh.
Rancor is like a kind of like a keeping in mind. Okay, for example, that
deep-seated ill will.
Yes.
Will.
Somebody somebody did something to me, then I'm holding that very deep in my mind. That's the rancor. Anyway, so this now here, Shantideva was introducing that after having this determinations, firm, courageous, then how one should fight with one's enemy, that which is affective emotions, in this way. That is saying that Dilandagi Shenjashin, Kundusuni Ultete, that this shall be my all-consuming passion. Filled with the rancor, I will wage my war. Defilement of this kind will held defilement, and for this reason it shall not be spurned. Spurned?
Spurned.
Spurned.
I don't even know spurned.
Spurned. It shall not be spurned. Okay, anyway, so what it is saying like that, okay, Dilandagi Shenjashing, that the, what do you call it?
Spurn means refuse, decline.
We need to have that kind of grudge or the rancor towards our own affective emotions. And then to keep that rancor, grudge, and then try to defeat it, try to wage a war with it. Now Shantideva, he is also, this is very much better if we imagine like two things. Oneself and one's own affective emotions are two different things. One's own affective emotions is one's enemy, and oneself is kind of like trying to get rid of that enemy. So imagine in these two things. And then now Shantideva was saying that, how to say, to keep towards one's own enemy, which is affective emotions, that I should have that rancor or the grudge, and then hold it, that rancor, and try to wage a war with it. Try to wage a war with it. Now here, generally, rancor, grudge, and then fighting are considering as a negative emotions, or the kind of like a bad. It is considering as a bad. But what Shantideva was saying, number nyumomba, that it looks afflictive emotions, that willing to fight with it and keeping rancor and grudge to one's own enemy, which is afflictive emotions. The aspect of that action, and then aspect of that actions looks emotion itself is afflictive emotions. And that aspect or the look afflictive emotion, it's exceptional to get rid of the afflictive emotions. You understand what it's saying? Number dinji nyomomba nyomon jomje matosu.
Mình đánh với tất cả cái lòng hận thù của mình vậy đó, mà nó cái kiểu này là hận thù nhưng mà thật ra là không phải.
So this is kind of like Shantideva was saying that it is actually not really afflictive emotion itself, but it looks afflictive emotions, isn't it? It is rancor, it is grudge. You are holding rancor to your own afflictive emotions. But what Shantideva was saying, that outlook aspect, afflictive emotion, it's exceptional for trying to get rid, fighting with your own afflictive emotion. That's exceptional. You can have it that. In order to fight with your own afflictive emotions, you can have that rancor. You can have that grudge. Hold it down and fight with it and try to defeat it. This is what he is saying. Actually, it is not really allowing you to have afflictive emotions, okay? That's why it is like an aspect. It is outlook. Outlook or the aspect. Its look seems like afflictive emotion itself because it is rancor. It is garage. But that kind of rancor or the garage is exceptional for you to have it in order to fight with your own afflictive emotions. Other than that, you cannot have it. That's clear. Number in that way, you should fight with your afflictive emotions. Now here Shantideva was writing that after having the courageous, firm decisions, and how one should fight with one's own enemy, right? So now this is the way you should fight with it. You should keep rancor and grudge towards your afflictive emotion, and then try to fight with it. This is what he is saying. And then Dani sing the same them Dagi go check like number Kundu Yomum Bijala Deva Mijao. And that kind of in this way also you should fight with it. That better if I perish, right? Perish. Better if I perish in the fire. Better that my head be served from my body than ever I should serve or reverence my mortal enemies, defiled emotions. Then after one having this courageous or firm decisions, then in order to fight with your afflictive emotions, you need to have that kind of sense as well. As he's saying, even though I killed by burning in a fire or cut my head and killed my or somebody killed me by cutting my head, but all the aspect, all the time, even though I have to sacrifice my life in that way, however, I will never going to, how to say, veneration or the bow to my afflictive emotions, my enemy of afflictive emotion. That kind of in this way that you should try to fight with your afflictive emotions. After having that courageous, then you should have that kind of how to say, braveness. Now this is kind of like a braveness, right? You should have a braveness that even though I killed by burn by fire, or I killed by cutting my head, but still all the aspect and all the time I will never going to veneration or the obey that my afflictive emotions. That kind of braveness, sense of braveness that you should have, and then you should fight with your afflictive emotions in this way. That actually, this is not just, okay, actually this is something we should understand with the above, that how Shantideva described the faults of afflictive emotions, actually. That when you miss that, then you don't really understand why Shantideva was saying such like that. Who can do like this? Then we feel like that. He's saying this two stanza that you should keep rancor or the grudge towards your enemy, afflictive emotion, and then wage a war and then try to fight with it. That kind of rancor or grudge is exceptional for you to trying to fight with your own afflictive emotions. And then on the other hand, he is also saying that even though I killed by burning, even though I killed by cutting my head, it's okay. It is okay rather than, it is like, it is okay rather than, it is not just okay. It is okay rather than in the all aspect, in the all the time, that rather than I'm veneration or obeying my enemies, to my enemies, which is afflictive emotions. It is okay rather than. That's how you should understand. It is okay rather than obeying my enemy. It is okay rather than feeding my afflictive emotions. That's what he's saying. Now, this is all how that he described that before, that if we feed these afflictive emotions, how it is going to harm, and how much it is going to harm, and how long it is going to harm, and how much it is difficult to feed. There's no way that if you feed your afflictive emotion, then they get satisfied and then they can go. No, they're never going to satisfy. They will keep ask you more and more and more. As much as we feed, that much they want more. That's true nature of our affective emotion. And if we don't feed it, then it is going to, how to say, disappear, reduce that much that we're going to get smaller. As much as we feed, they will going to become stronger. That's what now, this mainly Shantideva now, how to fight with our own afflictive emotion is based on understanding that its consequences now, actually. The consequences of feeding our afflictive emotions is naturally brings harm. And then the amount of harm, how much it can bring, which he also introduced before. And then the time-wise, how long that it will going to harm oneself. And then how it is impossible for oneself to feed them. And impossible for one, it is very much rare and difficult to make friends with them. So this all, how to say, fault or the consequences of feeding our own afflictive emotions, that understand we need to put with these two stanza as well. That why Shantideva was saying that you should keep rancor and grudge towards this enemy. Why? Because if you don't keep rancor and grudge to this enemy, and if you feed them, if you support them, and they will keep going to continue harm. And then how much they will going to harm is immeasurable. And then how long they will going to harm is endless. And how it is difficult for them, difficult to make friends with it is something very difficult and very rare that someone can do it. Therefore, rather than trying to support, rather than trying to, how to say, feed or obey your afflictive emotion, it is good to keep rancor and grudge and then wage a war and then try to eliminate, try to reduce and eliminate. And that's now this two stanza that Shantideva was really trying to, how to say, guiding how one should fight with one's afflictive emotions, to understand its defilement, its fault, its consequences, and then try to keep that rancor on grudge, and then try to get rid of, fight with it. And you should have a sense of the determinations that no matter what, even though I have to lose my life by burning in a fire, even though I have to lose my head, even though I lose my head, rather it is okay rather than obeying or venerating or bowing towards my enemy. That kind of determinations. With that, you should fight with it. And then Tamal Jao Yurne Tuyani, Yurshin Dadu Nation, Yonsune, Nibate, Tene Chidu, Numontasu Dedan Drama. Now, this stanza is something that now Shantideva was telling this one very important message here, through this stanza. That what he's saying is, common foes, when driven from the state, retreat and base themselves in other lands and muster all their strength, the better to return. But enemy afflictions are without such stratagems. Stratagems? Is it stratagem? Stratagems. Yes. Stratagems. That they don't really have that kind of strategy, isn't it? They will not going to have that strategies. It is not like this. Okay, now, yeah, this. Okay, so this first three is like a example. Last line is the meaning. So now the example, okay, first let me tell you this stanza, the theme of this stanza. Theme of this stanza, Shantideva, what he is trying to letting us understand is that ordinary foe and this afflictive emotion foe, these two enemy. Now, what really have this difference between these two enemies is these ordinary enemies are that showing by this three line. Ordinary enemies are if you dispel out them. If you dispel out them, if you kick them out, then they will going to reside or dwell in a different land. And then they will going to train themselves to make themselves stronger than before. And then they will going to gather all their friends. They will going to gather all the friends to prepare to take revenge. And they will going to return back to take revenge to me. To take revenge to me. That's ordinary enemy will do that. Therefore, the good things, this enemy which is afflictive emotions, the good thing in this enemy which is afflictive emotion is they will not going to do this way. The good thing in our this foe, this afflictive emotions, this enemy is this afflictive emotion enemy is not like that. It is not like that. Once you get rid of completely, kick them out, once you dispel out, then they will not going to come back. That's now different. That's different between ordinary enemy and then this external enemy and internal enemy. Let me say this. This is the difference between this external enemy and internal enemy. Internal enemy which is within our mind, those emotions, internal enemy. This internal enemy, once you try to fight with it, and then if you defeat them, and if you kick them out, if you dispel them completely, and this your internal enemy will not going to stay in somewhere, and then they build their strengthness or strongness, and then gather all the friends, and then coming back to take revenge. That this internal enemy will not going to do that. That's the good thing in this our internal enemy. But external enemy, if you just dispel out, and then they will going to do that. So therefore, that it is something Shantideva was saying that we don't have to worry that once you kick them out completely, they will not gonna take revenge. You don't need to worry about they are taking revenge like an external enemy. They are not like external enemy about this. But as long as you keep it within yourself, and they are worse than external enemies. This is what it says.
Nhưng cái kẻ thù nội tâm này mình khi đánh bại được nó, tiêu trừ được nó không bao giờ nó có cái kế hoạch nó trở.
So, and until they're here now, he shown the one method how to fight with our afflictive emotions by understanding, by contemplating on its consequences. If I obey, if I feed my afflictive emotions, what consequences will going to bring within oneself. And then now, from here he is showing the another method of how to fight with it, how to deal with it, afflictive emotions. That is stanza number 46 and 47. These two stanza. Nyomo nyomo sharap megipong dai lesa kandu drowa yu kandu ne dane shachiro loshen dala tsumba mebar says nyomo namne yul namne wangsok lamin parna min dele shena mina deda kane drowa kuneshi yini nyunda techer ninga jipong shecher tsumba ten demeni to dala nyasu namsu chide never cheers. So now this miserable defilements scattered by the eye of wisdom, where will you now run? When driven from my mind, whence would you return to do me harm? But oh, my mind is feeble, I am indolent and indolent. Defilements are not in the object, nor within the faculties, nor somewhere in between. And if not elsewhere, where is their abode? Whence they inflict their havoc on the world. They are simple mirage, and so take heart. Banish all your fear and strive to know their nature. Why suffer needlessly the pain of hell? Pain of hell. Now, now here this one. This nyomo sharab megipons. This afflictive emotions. The afflictive emotions is kind of like it is Shantideva. What is Shantideva saying? This is now Shantideva really showing the another antidote, another method to how to fight with it, how to get rid of it. That he is saying now the fact it is easy. It is actually the fact it is easy to get rid of. It is just that when one have an eye of wisdom, and then eye of wisdom will going to abandon this afflictive emotion. And when you remove this afflictive emotions through your this wisdom eye, then when you dispel that, and where this afflictive emotions will going to go, and where this afflictive emotions will going to dwell or reside, and then from where this afflictive emotions going to return back to harm to oneself. Loshendala Zumba member says, it is fact that once you remove through your this wisdom eye this enemy of afflictive emotions, and this enemy of afflictive emotions doesn't have any location or any land that they can go, and there's not any land or property that they can dwell, and there's no way that they can return back to harm to oneself. So not understanding that is the kind of like not understanding our nature of our defilement or nature of our enemy is this way, is the some sort of like the lacking of wisdom. That's called lacking of wisdom, or the inferiorness of wisdom. And through that, having that lacking of wisdom, then we are not being able to put effort to trying to fight with it. Therefore, that we are not being able to get rid of this. If you put effort enough, if you have this wisdom eye, then it is not something very difficult to dispel out. This is what it is saying, Shantideva. So now this method antidote, Shantideva was really trying to let us watch, let us look to our own enemy itself. Find out how it can be dispelled. First, it can simply dispelled by having this wisdom eye. Once you dispelled through this wisdom eye, and then this enemy will, there's no any land or locations that they can go and they can dwell, and then they can return back to harm to you. Now understand that and build this wisdom, and with that wisdom, and then put diligence, put effort to dispel out. If you do that, and it is not very difficult to dispel out. If you don't build this wisdom, and if you don't put effort, then it will not going to dispel out. It cannot be dispelled out. Likewise, and then defilements are not in the object. Now again, he's trying to, now this is very that he's trying to let us watch. It's natural. It's natural. This is itself is antidote. Now he's telling us how to fight with our enemy. And this is the way you should fight with your enemy. That defilements or the enemy, which is afflictive emotions, are not in the object. They are not dwell in the object, nor within the faculties, nor somewhere in between, nor somewhere in between faculties and object. And if not elsewhere, then there's no elsewhere that this our defilement or the enemy of afflictive emotions is residing. Then where they dwell, and then they're harming all the sentient beings. When you really look into itself, it is really non-exist. This is very nonsense, non-exist, but harming every sentient being. Therefore, it is like a mirage. It is just like a mirage. It is not really solid exist. Now Shantideva was saying, since it is not really solid exist, since it is like a mirage, so therefore you shouldn't scare, you shouldn't fear to your enemy, and just build your wisdom, and then just put effort, rely or depend or rely to build your wisdom, and then to build your diligence. If you do that, and this kind of mirage enemy can be eliminated, can be dispelled out. If you don't dispel out through your building this wisdom, and then through your effort, then it can be harmed in a very worse way. And those all harm is actually really essenceless or the meaningless. We are kind of like a somehow we are struggling meaninglessly. There's no really we need to struggle, but still we're experiencing struggle. Without any essence, without any meaning, that why harming oneself and then pulling oneself down to hell and so forth, like the pretas, animals, and humans, demigods, and gods, so forth. Why harming oneself meaninglessly? If we really contemplate on all this, it is really meaninglessly we are harming ourselves. Now, this is itself now. It's one antidote that which Abhidhamma was trying to let us have this. So now mainly here, this stanza number 43 and 44, 43 and 44 and 45, we can also include that, 45. These are the three stanzas he's trying to guiding to how to fight with one's defilement, one's enemy, which is affective emotions, through understanding its consequences. So there, and then you should make decision yourself, no matter what, all the aspect and all the time, I will never going to venerate it to my defilement. And then the now second method that how one can fight and how one can try to defeat one's enemy is watching enemy. It's natural. Find it. And he's giving also these two very point that you should build that wisdom and you should have that diligence. Through wisdom and diligence, and this enemy can dispel out easily. Otherwise, oneself is harming meaninglessly oneself and then pulling oneself down to fall into those three lower realms and so forth. And then now this last stanza he is concluding now, concluding whole this stanza. Now this is conclusion of all this chapter number 4. This is how I should reflect and labor, that I might apply the precepts first set forth. What invalids in need to medicine ignore their doctor's word and gain their health. So the first two is meaning and second two is example. Second two line is example. And he's concluding all this chapter number 4 meaning within this stanza, within this first two line. This is how I should reflect and labor. Okay, what does it mean now? In short, in this chapter number 4, what he really showed is that first he introduced the precepts, and then he introduced the fault of breaking those precepts, and then he introduced that even though just having all these causes and conditions gathering in you, it doesn't really make difference if you don't take responsibility for yourself. And then also he taught about this precious human rebirth, that while you having all this condition gathered, and this is the really moment that never ever think, never ever that say that I am incapable to do this. And then he also introduced the, what do you call it? The afflictive emotions, its own fault. And how to fight with it. He also provides two different antidotes, two different methods to how to fight with it. This is now saying, this is how I should reflect and labor. Now this all concluding here, that I might apply the precept thus set forth, Bodhicharyavatara, in order to preserve my vow, and in order to practice in samadhi, in order to build the wisdom, and I should reflect and labor all the above methods. That's how Shantideva guided for us to have a sense of carefulness. In that way, if we reflect and labor all those, then it can becomes that can becomes conditions for oneself to be able to practice to these precepts, this Mahayana spiritual path. If you don't do that, then example, if you don't do that, what invalids in need to medicine ignore their doctor's vote and gain their help. Doesn't want to listen the doctor's advice, but willing to cure one disease, it is not going to work. In the same way, what Shantideva was really trying to say is, if you don't reflect and labor all those ideas which he provided before, so far until now, if you don't reflect them, if you don't labor them, then which means you are not following the doctor's advice, and you just want medicine. And just eating medicine, not following his way of eating medicine and what you should avoid and what you should not, and all those manners, if you don't follow, then just eating by that medicines to cure that disease is difficult. It is not going to happen. Likewise, how to say, having willing to practice Dharma, and top of that, and you need to follow the instruction that since you have that willing to practice Dharma, and then you need to top of that, you need to also to follow that those guidance, those experienced persons, how they guided in order to practice the Dharma, what to do, what to have a sense of carefulness, and all this. You need to have all this in order to kind of like make it your spiritual path very proper. So with that, now we finish this chapter number 4, which is Shantideva mainly trying to let us have a sense of carefulness to not to transgress our Bodhisattva's vow, which we received already. Okay. Then now, tomorrow we will gonna have question answers. Tomorrow I'm not gonna teach new chapter, so you will study about all those 4 chapters from chapter number 1 to the chapter number 4 until now. Then try to study a little bit, then we can discuss tomorrow. Question answers, we can do this. Tomorrow we're going to do question answers. Thank you. Then we dedicate Senam de thamje zibani, thome nyebe endranam thamje ne, chega nanji walar chubai, sibe tsolem roa chovarasho, jambalaba jidara kembana, kundu sambo de antishinde, teda kunji jesu dalochi, gewan deda tamje rabdo Yewan di shewo Sanam yeshe tozon Sanam yeshe le jonwe Tamba kunyi pabrasho Sanje kusum yebe chimamna Chunyi mingyur dembe shimamna Gendem mechen Jidra moa melam jabarasho. By this beneficial activity, may I obtain omniscience, and having vanquished the harmful and great anger delusion, may I liberate all being tossed about helplessly by the waves of birth, aging, illness, and death in the ocean of becoming. By conforming to the knowledge of courageous Manjushri, Chakalya, and in the same way as Samandabhadra, Kundusambo, and following their example, I dedicate perfectly all these virtues. By this virtue, may all beings perfectly achieve the accumulation of merit, sonam, and wisdom, yeshi, and may they thereafter obtain the two holy bodies which result from these two accumulations. By the blessing of the Buddha, Sandi, who obtained the three bodies, by the blessing of the immutable truths of the Dharmata, Chuni, by the blessing of the infallible aspirations of the Sangha, Yemin, may this prayer of dedication be accomplished just as it is.
Dhammata, Dhammata, how Dhammata is different from the Dhamma, the other word. Dhammata, how is it different from the other word? Dhamma. Okay, just focus on Dhammata alone. What is Dhammata?
What is Dharmata?
Yeah.
Dharmata. Dharmata.
Trong cái bài hồi hướng đó cô hàng thứ hai, hàng the second last line, tức là cái hàng cuối cùng.
Dharmanda is chuni. Chuni means the natural.
Natural. Dhammatatu. The other one is the Dhammatatu.
Same, Dhammatatu.
Oh, Dhammatatu and Dhammata is the same.
Chuni.
Chuni.
Chunit.
How is it?
Dharma itself. Dharma itself.
So it's more talking about the whole the nature of all phenomena.
Okay. Chuni mingyur demechana. That true nature of Dharma is never going to change. The blessing of never going to change the true nature of Dharma, which means if you do good, comes good. That's nature of Dharma.
Natural Dharma.
So that's okay. Here, why we're making aspirations in this way is that this teaching Dharma and listening Dharma, that action is itself is the good action. So out of that, this is kind of like the blessing is unchangeable. The blessing of unchangeable truth of true nature of Dharma is that listening Dharma is the kind of like itself is the one way of accumulating great meritorious. And then now this meritorious, we putting that merit as a witness to fulfill my wish. Because I have this truth, blessing of truth, unchangeable nature of Dharma, because which I did it. So I'm making aspirations out of it.
Thành ra cái Dhammata là cái bản chất, cái chân tánh của cái pháp. Là khi mà mình, tại sao mà mình lại phải hồi hướng như thế này? Bởi vì khi mình lắng nghe pháp và mình đi nhận pháp như thế này là một cái thiện hạnh mà mình làm, và bởi vì cái chân tánh bất biến của pháp á, của vạn pháp á, là cái việc làm này của mình là tự nó đã có một cái lực gia trì rồi, thì mình có thể dùng cái này nó là cái công đức, và bởi vì cái chân tánh bất biến của vạn pháp nó tự nhiên rằng là mình đã gặt hái được cái công đức, thì tự nhiên mà mình sẽ thành tựu được những cái ý nguyện của mình, và mình tự nhiên là mình sẽ nhận được cái lực gia trì để mà mình thành tựu những cái gì mà mình cần phải thành tựu. Và đó là lý do tại sao mà người ta lại phải nhắc đến cái chân lý bất biến này.
Okay.
Yeah.